Hey folks, Zach Oshman here, IU Insider, Indianapolis Star. This is Mind Your Banners. I guess we normally throw the date in here. It's October 23rd, but you're not going to hear this on the 23rd. We're going to post this later in the week. It's a Mind Your Banners special, and we're very excited for this. We have a very good friend, Harry Lyles of ESPN, is with us. Harry is a big part of ESPN's weekly college football kind of coverage coast to coast, and in particular, he's a big part of ESPN's game day process and game day programming, I guess you'd say. On Saturdays, of course, Bloomington will host game day on a Saturday for the first time ever this weekend. And so we asked Harry to come on, and he was more than generous with his time. Harry, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here, man. You know, I always got time for people in the state of Indiana. I'm happy to spend time.
I guess let's start there. It's you have what I think is fondly referred to as the reverse Osterman career path. You were born in Indiana. You went to Atlanta for college, Georgia State, go Panthers, and now you're based down there, receiving forlorn texts from me anytime the Falcons, Braves, or Hawks fail miserably at something, which, let's be honest, is unfortunately very often. But just kind of give people just kind of an idea of your background, and in particular, obviously, how you have come into sports broadcasting, sports reporting.
Yeah, it's actually so. I actually am born and raised in Atlanta. But
why did I think you were born in Evansville?
Well, so my dad's side of the family's from Evansville.
You can see I'm a really professional podcaster. You can tell, like I'm on top of all this.
But you know what's funny about that though is like, whether it is family or friends, I think even one of your colleagues referred to me as an Evansville native because I had IU in my college football playoff rankings a couple of weeks ago. Like everybody believes that, and I mean, like I kind of feel it, just because like Evansville like truly is like a second home to me. I would argue I even know it better than my own backyard. And then obviously I've got the ties. I'm sure some people know of Lyles Station. Like that is my lineage. Like we all come from there. Princeton, moved to Evansville. I would say probably in the 40s and 50s, if I had to guess. And so, yeah, my dad's a Wrights High School graduate. My aunt was a counselor at Evansville North. Like I got cousins that went to Harrison, like all over the place. And so, it's just a place that I've always gone to growing up. Like, even as a young adult, did a lot of growing in Evansville. And a lot of the work that I did to get here, oddly enough, came through those experiences. Like I wrote the story on the plane crash from 1977. Like I was there when Evansville beat Kentucky, and I was the only person in the press box that wasn't disappointed. Like, so it's been like pretty poetic for me. And honestly, like maybe one day I will let people know like how much like it means to me that like things have worked out the way that they have.
Would you say that this is all happening now with game day and everything because we finally finished I-69? So like you could finally actually get from Evansville to Bloomington without having to drive all the way over to the Illinois state line and then come down. And in all seriousness, go read some of what Harry's written about Evansville, about Lyles. You mentioned Lyles Station. Take some time with that. It's really good stuff. It's fascinating stuff, and you will really enjoy it. I guess I should ask you, as someone who has, by proximity, if nothing else, obviously we're 5 feet from it at all times on this podcast, which ironically is a basketball reference, talking so much right now about football. But as somebody who certainly by proximity knows a lot about the history of IU football, knows a lot about certainly even the recent history of IU football and some of Kevin Wilson's success, Tom Allen's success, the process, that Indiana's kind of been going through these last several years to try and become more relevant. How have you processed or digested this season beyond obviously showing your homer roots and deigning to put a 7-0 team in the playoff? How dare you? How dare you?
I know, right?
Consider that a team with the largest scoring margin in the country might be one of the best 12 teams in America.
Yeah, uncanny, right? I always try to urge people, hey, strip the names, strip the colors, strip the logos off, and like let's take a look at what we got here. Um, I think for Indiana, obviously it was interesting, the COVID year, the success that they had with Michael Penix and all those things, like you saw flashes of like, okay, this could work. I think the thing that makes IU and Kurt Signetti a perfect marriage of sorts is you have to have the type of program for IU where you have the guys that just have that different kind of hunger. And I know that his guys have that because he brought some of his guys with him from JMU, and we covered them extensively last year. And so what you're seeing now in college football is a lot of these G5 or even lower tier Power 4 programs. Obviously you're always going to get guys from high school, but you're also, it's not even necessarily about the transfers who leave a bigger program to play down. It's the guys that are playing down that want to play up, and the guys that are just so desperate to prove themselves, to try to make it to a level that they think that they have been shortchanged on, whether it's because of their size or whatever the case may be. And so you've got a team that, while relatively, there's a lot of relatively new faces, you got a lot of want on that football team. And you've got a guy that, if you're in that locker room, it's hard not to listen to him given the success that he's had everywhere that he's been. Um, and so this just, to me, it's not shocking. Now, if you would have told me that they would have been this good this early and haven't lost up to this point, that's shocking to me. But the fact that he is having success is not a shock to me. Like you saw the interviews he did last week on McAfee and things like that. Like, that's a guy that is unsurprisingly going to get guys to play for him. And it's exactly what Indiana has needed.
You talked about James Madison, and you were part of the crew that was there for game day last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
What? Because I wanted to ask you about that too, because I think Indiana fans have been trying to almost sort of appropriate some of the JMU experience and understand, where this coach and his philosophy and all these coaches with him and the players with him kind of came from. Like, if you, especially kind of, I guess, for the purposes of this podcast anyway, knowing what transpires after, what do you remember most about being around his program a year ago when obviously they win, 11 games? They win the Sun Belt. I know, there was the whole sort of like the moment where he got up and challenged the NCAA to let him in a bowl game and all that. But, just again, especially with the hindsight of knowing kind of what happens next, what do you see maybe in Indiana that you can look back on being around JMU and Kurt Signetti's JMU teams and maybe see some similarities or some things that just have maybe a little bit of a different frame of reference now?
I think the thing that stands out to me, because we actually did a JMU game this year as well. Bob Chesney's done a really good job with that. I think the thing to me that sort of sticks out now with present sort of perspective as well is that, like, and I think some people there might disagree with this, but like, you set a standard and an expectation, but you also set a culture. And so now, like, I think, to me, and James Madison, people forget, like, or not even forget, a lot of people just don't know, like, that's been a program that before FBS football has been a successful program. Like, they've done this, right? I think the thing, it's a little apples and oranges, but it's sort of relevant, is that you still had to raise the level, right? In Indiana, their standard for football traditionally hasn't been the highest, which is fine. There's other great things to enjoy at Indiana University. But I think the thing that, if you are an IU fan, there's probably two realistic expectations that you ought to have. One, that there's an expiration date on this, because there's an expiration date on everything, but you know how this goes. Two, I think your bigger hope needs to be that there is some sort of staying power in a culture that is established when this time is up. When that time is up, who knows when that's going to be? I personally hope we get a handful of years of this because it's been incredibly fun to watch so far. But I think that it's, again, that sort of, there's also that belief too. Like, I do the Thursday night broadcast with Matt Berry and Dan Mullen every week and have for the past 2 years, 3 years in total. Or is it 4? You lose track of time. But you can often tell, you can often tell when guys are trying to manufacture belief and sell you on an idea, and you can tell when there's actual belief because players are regurgitating things that coaches are saying, like very small specific things. And like Kurt Signetti had that at JMU, and so far it seems like he's got that at Indiana. So I think that has to be your hope, is that there's some staying power beyond whatever this thing is going to be.
You mentioned kind of your path. I do want to give people a sense for your journey through this. So you talked about kind of growing up and first of all, I guess, how did you come into journalism? You talk about some of the stories you wrote, at Evansville. I think some people will probably remember you well from SB Nation. I think you joined ESPN in 2020, somewhere in there.
2020.
And was it kind of an immediate transition from there, not just into writing and reporting, but also into sideline reporting stuff? Like, how did you kind of meet the writing and the reporting with the on-air stuff, I guess?
Yeah. I got into the writing because I didn't want to do local TV out of college. Like, I did an interview in Augusta, Georgia at a Mellow Mushroom, and I knew what the job responsibilities were. But like, once I went there and I was like, okay, not only would I like live here, I would make no money doing something that I don't want to do, which was like, local news. I was like, I got to figure out another way. And so on my drive back, I called my mom and I was like, hey, I'm going to use whatever I had, whatever little money I had in my savings. I was like, can I get the rest of whatever money I needed to buy a laptop? Because my laptop was like fried at that point. And so I bought a laptop, started my own blog, started just literally teaching myself how to write in 2014, 2015. Got enough reps, and Twitter was still relatively new-ish at the time. So like, I was doing a lot of networking and sort of just building up a following on there. Turned into freelance opportunities with Awful Announcing and thecomeback.com. That turned into an internship with SB Nation. I almost took a job with ESPN in 2016 working on the ESPN app. And SB Nation called me at the last second and offered me a news desk writing job doing NFL. And so I took that. I joined October 2016. I was out March 2020. Like, I signed and mailed in my contract with ESPN the day they shut down the NBA. Like, I maintain to this day, I am the luckiest person from the pandemic, because somehow just about everything went right for me when I needed it to. Like, I worked hard and all that type of stuff like that, but like, I undoubtedly had some luck, at least timing wise, on a lot of things. And then when I got to ESPN, I signed on to write, and George Floyd. So I joined March 2020. My first day was the 30th. George Floyd was murdered, I think May 26th. And so obviously that started the Black Lives Matter, wave in 2020. Clemson had their march. I got a call that they needed somebody there for Sports Center. I drove up there immediately, did my first Sports Center hit. And they have not stopped asking me to do TV since. And, that turned into, hey, can you be at game day on Saturdays? And that turned into, hey, can you do Thursday night sideline? And I will just say I didn't get here by saying no to anything. So very, very fortunate that it ended up this way. I never thought I'd be doing sideline. I never thought I'd be doing, the pre-college game day show that I do with Christine Williamson and Harry Douglas. But it is, It's awesome, man. Like, it's awesome. Like, and I do Around the Horn every Monday during football season. I do it twice a week during the off season. Like, whether it's I'm looking into those four squares, in my monitor, in my feed on Around the Horn, or it's before kickoff on a Thursday night, or like we walk out to that crowd on Saturday. Like, I usually have 3 moments where I'm like, is this like I'm doing this? Like, I'm for real. I did it. I always thought I'd do it. I just didn't know when. I did it quicker than I thought. So
I grew up watching when I was but not a kid. When I was in high school, I watched Harry and Tony Douglas play basketball. So every time I see Harry Douglas pop up on ESPN,
yeah,
I feel very old, very
it's
very
great.
old.
And he'll tell you he thinks not even basketball. He'll tell you like baseball was his game.
They were like legends in the city. Just the two of
Yeah.
them down at Jonesboro High School.
Jonesboro, yeah, because they named the gym after him last year.
And this is gonna be like so niche for like I don't know 5 of our listeners, if that. But they were like every Saturday morning in the newspaper. It was like, oh, what they get up to this time, and then when they played basketball together, I think they got Jonesboro to like a state semifinal or a state title game or something. I mean, it was just, and obviously Tony goes on to play in the NBA, and Harry goes on to play in the NFL. It's or I mean, I'm roughly the same level of athlete that they are, so I can certainly empathize with their experience. Just want to ask you about game day a little bit and your role in it. Obviously, I think we all of a certain age, ESPN College Game Day has been something very culturally important to college football fans. Since probably before even I could remember it. How is it in maybe not just your experience working with Game Day, but even before that, and as someone who I imagine at one point, like the rest of us, just grew up probably watching it on Saturdays. Yep. How do you think it's grown, and why do you think it, especially as you now have the perspective of kind of being on the inside of the whole production process, why do you think it has kind of entrenched itself as essentially, kind of like, in the same way that we think of, I'm not sure that, I guess I'm sitting here and thinking about, I'm not sure we have another sort of pregame show that's quite as sort of culturally relevant the same way, like Fox and CBS split the NFL, and I guess Baseball Tonight has some of that too, but like it just feels like College Game Day is a world apart. I'm just curious for kind of your perspective as somebody who, like I said, like the rest of us probably watched it growing up, and now you're on the inside of it and you see it from the other direction.
So I think it works in two different ways. Have you ever been to a College Game Day on site?
I cover Indiana football.
Okay, so figured, but
yeah.
So
well, that's harsh. They were here in 17. It was Thursday night, so it wasn't the guest picker. It wasn't the same vibe. It wasn't the whole,
yeah.
But I mean, it was Reese and Kirk and Lee Corso, and I'm struggling to remember if there was a fourth person on set for that one or not. But.
So there's two angles to this. The first one is the one that most people are familiar with, which is you at home, dialing up some breakfast or coffee, whatever. And you're essentially like, you're enjoying the show, but like you're burning time until the game starts. Right. And typically I think the thing, in my opinion, that has made the show great is you can usually latch yourself onto somebody on the desk that you like, whether it's Dez, whether it's Reese, whether it's Coach Corso, whether it's Herbie or anybody else that's been on the desk over the years. That's one thing that has made it successful, I think. But two, and this is the thing that I think that you will experience on Saturday that I did not realize until I started being around it, is I think it's harder at home to get a full understanding of like, yes, we're putting on a pregame show, all those kinds of things, whatever. It's getting you ready for Saturday, but it's also a celebration of the place that you're at. And I think that you get a better feel for that when you're actually at the event. And the thing that we've done this year that I think has made that even better is me, Christine Williamson, and Harry Douglas, after we do our Countdown to College Game Day show on the app and on YouTube, during the commercial breaks, we're now trying to be more interactive with fans. And so there will be like a dance competition. The first one we do is draw tickets for, whoever gets to do the McAfee kick, which obviously has been just an incredible addition to the show. It's arguably, it produces the best images of the show every week now. So like that, we've done like finish the lyric, any number of different things. So like we're really trying to get the people that are there involved more. So it's not just like, hey, you're present for a TV show, but it's more of a live event now. And I think that has just sort of taken it to another level. And then obviously, I don't think anybody can deny that the addition of Pat McAfee has just not absolutely helped the product, because at least for the people, or especially I should say for the people that are there, he's so good at making sure that he learns whatever chance that a team does, or those little types of things. And like I don't know how much that pops out on the screen at home. I know I see the clips, so I know it's working. But it definitely works, when we're on site there. And so I think that attention to detail and that extra energy that he brings, like, I think people really feed off of that. And so, and then obviously Coach Saban has been an incredible addition. I think I think we all knew he was going to be good at TV. I think he's even better than I think most of us thought, which is fitting for a guy like that. And then Reese Davis is just the best in the game. Dude is built different, and then obviously everything that Des brings, just everybody on the show. And then, Coach Corso's a staple. I mean, just awesome guy, really friendly. I'm lucky to be a part of it. And then honestly, ever since Kirk started bringing Ben around, that just lifts everybody up. So
I'm gonna bring my dog this weekend. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you should. I think, everybody's willingness to sort of adapt. Definitely a lot of credit to Jim Guerrero, the producer, like Jimmy G, like he's open-minded guy, always trying to improve. So I think, I think people like the family vibe that it gives off on television, like that's a real thing.
Last question, I guess, for you, just to give people a sense. Obviously, we're seeing schedules come out, and I think we're still waiting on guest picker as of recording here. No one's asked me yet, but obviously I am available if anybody needs me to step in. It's kind of a cliche last question for you, but whether it's something in countdown, whether it's you talk about the interaction with fans and being maybe more sort of one-to-one with the people who are there, like what's the thing you look forward to the most, and maybe specific to having a little bit more, you and Pat having maybe a little bit more context for what this will mean for IU fans specifically. What's the thing maybe you're looking forward to most this weekend?
I think it should be our best show this year. That is that is not a prediction. That is a hope and expectation of a place where we don't go. Like, you're having unprecedented success. Like, we are fully expecting an insane crowd, an insane turnout, lots of energy. Like, that's the one thing that I'm looking forward to. And my favorite part of every Saturday is, even before our show starts, me and Harry Douglas always make it a point to go out and usually, and you'll see it the way it's built up. And I mean, you can kind of recognize it on TV, but like there's, plenty of like walkways for you to kind of go through the entire crowd. Like there's a circle stage, there's a demo field where we do our show, all that type of stuff like that. Every Saturday morning before our show starts, me and HD make sure we go out and we'll start either on the left or the right end. And anybody that we can get our hands on, take pictures with, we thank them for coming out. And then we just try to get everybody just hyped out of their minds. Like, let's have fun. Let's enjoy this thing. To the point where like, I don't want to say I get too hyped up, but like I've definitely broken a sweat multiple times this year when I shouldn't have. But dude, we love it, man. Like, it's so much damn fun. And we get more excited when we go to places like this because it's like, okay, we know when we show up to Bloomington Saturday morning, like that is going to be one of our like most appreciative and excited crowds that we're going to see all season. And so this is one that, you know, when it was finally announced, we were like, all right, let's freaking go.
Perfect. He's Harry Lyles. Harry, thank you so much for joining us. It's always good to get two Atlantans on this podcast. One of these days, we'll just make these people listen to an hour of Thrashers talk.
That's right.
This has been Mind Your Banners, a Mind Your Banners special. Thank you so much to Harry Lyles from ESPN GameDay. You'll see him this weekend, bright and early. I imagine a lot of you will beat me out there, but I will be there probably sometime around sunup Saturday morning. It is going to be fascinating. It's going to be a lot of fun. Harry, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for listening. We will be back with our live post-game reaction show after IU Washington Saturday noon kickoff. Until then, for the Indianapolis Star, I'm Zach Osborne. We'll talk to you soon.